Welcome in on today's session. Today we're going to be talking about Sarbanes-Oxley entity level controls. Now hopefully you've noticed by now that we have quite a few different webinars out there on Sarbanes-Oxley in the various sections. And the intent is to give you more than just an overview of Sarbanes-Oxley. There are quite a few modules out there right now, and there will be a few more that we will put in place to give you really a better understanding of Sarbanes-Oxley as a whole. Everything from how it first was initiated to applying the various concepts like top-down risk assessment, documentation, testing. So if you go back and you Google or look under my name under the performative tabs, you will see there are several sessions on COSO. I would suggest you look at the COSO overview especially. There's an overview Sarbanes-Oxley session, which I suggest that you look at first. And then we have some on Sarbanes-Oxley 404, Sarbanes-Oxley 302, a separate one on Section 806, 902, and 906. Then this one is on entity level controls. We have two on top-down risk assessments and how to actually execute and perform those. We also have one on documentation. There'll be some on testing and some other elements, and as well as XBRL. So there's a whole series of different courses out there to help you really understand all the implications of Sarbanes-Oxley and help you reevaluate what your processes are and how you can synergize them. So with that quick introduction, my name is Lynn Fountain. I'm your facilitator. I'm a past chief audit executive, and I do a lot of training on this particular topic as well as internal audit, internal controls, ethics, fraud, and some various other topics. So today, let's do a short introduction here before we get into the agenda. Entity level controls, and you'll see I refer to them as ELCs. We all know they're not only hard to sometimes identify, and we've talked about that in our top-down risk assessment webinar, but they're even more difficult to assess because they're considered soft controls. When I say soft controls, I'm referring to controls that really don't have that tangible evidence that you can look at and go pull a piece of paper. So they really don't lend themselves to the normal validation process, and that's why organizations as well as external auditors have struggled through the years. And what do we really do? Do we just take a checklist approach? Do we ask a few questions? What do we do? So they have resorted to those types of questionnaires and interviews, but there needs to be a little bit of caution with that, because with the new COSO 2013, the framework has made it pretty clear that organizations should ensure that those, quote, soft components aren't just there in policy, that they're actually there in action and execution. So if you go back to the webinar, if you haven't seen it, on top-down risk assessment, we discussed some entity level controls and some processes that you might be able to apply for certain entity level controls. This particular session will delve further into understanding various approaches you can take that might be outside your, quote, current comfort zone, but they're probably going to take you a lot farther than just using a simple questionnaire or even an interview with an executive or a process owner. So our agenda for today, we're going to go over hard versus soft controls, give you some examples, talk about what the definition of those, then talk a little more about what's the challenge of evaluating soft controls, and then the results that you come up with after you've done your evaluations. Then I'm going to go through 4 separate methods that I think you can use to really complement and enhance your evaluation of soft controls. That includes using COSO, the COSO model, and some of the principles, using a maturity model approach, which I'll go through, using a cause and effect type evaluation, and using questionnaires and surveys and what they will and won't tell you. And then we'll finish up with linking our soft controls to COSO principles and financial statement assertions, because again, as we discussed in our top-down risk assessment, that's a very important attribute also. So with that, our first section is going to be talking about what is a hard control. versus what are soft controls.